Shalom. I hope you all had a good week. We had a wonderful week. We got to see our kids, and it was really nice. So this week, we are going to be talking about Pesach and God's Bashert. So the reason we're going to be talking about God's intended bride is because it is during this time that God chose Israel as his bride. So let's get started. If you will join me, please, in prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who sets us apart by his establishments and established us on words of Torah. So this week's teaching is called Pesach and God's Bashert. In Judaism, like I said, it's taught that the choosing of the bride occurs at Pesach. God chose Israel, the Jews, as his bride to receive his ketubah or marriage contract, which is the Torah, and that was given at Sinai. So upon speaking with him, God gave Moses 2 tablets. The Hebrew expression rendered here as upon finishing, kehalato, is almost identical to a term that means as his bride. So where it says upon finishing, it's almost exactly as his bride. The 2 words differ only by 1 vowel. There's always that similarity, and just depends on what the vowel is on a lot of words. And based on that wordplay, the rabbis sometimes understood part of this verse as God gave Moses as his bride the 2 tablets. And Moses was a representative of the children of Israel. So the feminine personification of the Torah as the bride of Israel is an ancient tradition. And in Shemot Rabbah 41:5, the rabbis declare that when God gave the Torah to Israel, it was then as dear to them as a bride is to her spouse. So let's see what's going on. The betrothal at Sinai. In Sanhedrin 59a, in the Jewish Encyclopedia, it says the Torah is betrothed to Israel, to the children of Israel, and therefore it's forbidden to every other nation, except of course to the Gentiles that have joined themselves to Israel and have, basically have received it for themselves also, but they have joined themselves to Israel. In Deuteronomy 33:4, it says, Moses issued to us a law, a Torah, an instruction, an inheritance for the assembly, for the congregation of Jacob. So the Torah as a betrothal, as a ketubah, it's going to start painting a picture. In Genesis 2:18, it says, the eternal God said, it is not good for a human to be alone, for a man. I will make him a fitting counterpart, kenegdo, for him. Now that word is in front of, but it's also like something straightforward, before your face. Bex, did you get it? Mm-hmm. Before your face, somebody that's in your face, okay, in front of, but it's kind of, adversarial. And Sforno wrote, the reason why the Torah added the word kenegdo is that whenever one confronts someone of equal power or moral and ethical weight, such a confrontation is termed neged. It is a head-on collision of will. Ecclesiastes 4:9 says, a helpmeet should be understood in the light of two are better than one, according to Ibn Ezra. And Rashi, according to that same scripture, said, therefore, a person should acquire for himself a companion and marry a woman, for they have a greater return in their labor. Much work is accomplished by two because there are tasks that an individual would not start on his own. There's got to be some equal, there's got to be something equal between them. There's got to be, some, like it says here, someone of equal power or equal morals or equal ethical weight, okay, where you can confront each other, where you can have a dialogue and have understanding of each other's background, or where they're coming from, basically. So I thought about this scripture, Proverbs 27:17, where it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And, marriage is very much like that, yes, you get along, you're in love, you have each other, and you can depend on that person, but it's also iron sharpening iron. You see that your spouse is going in the wrong direction, and you kind of go, nope, that's not a good thing, don't go there, don't do that, don't say that, whatever, and you help them to walk upright, to live rightly before God. So in Covenant and Conversation in Genesis, the book of the beginnings, it says, until he became aware of his mortality, Adam could think as an equal. She shall be woman, Isha, for she was taken from man, Ish. He says, she was in his eyes an extension of himself. When God said, look, this is Isha, taken from Ish. At that point, Adam realized, hey, she's an extension of me. She's part of me. She's not, just somebody that is just there to help me out. No, she's part of me. So therefore, I have to take care of her. Therefore, I have to be there for her. Therefore, I am just as responsible for her and her needs as she is for mine. The Zohar tells us that prior to marriage, man is only half a person and finds wholeness and or completeness when he meets and unites in marriage to his intended, to his soulmate, to his Bashert. So, or Basherta. And it's important because it's like that longing that the man has for his wife to complete him is what God allowed to happen to Adam. Because think about it, Adam is created, and then God brings all these animals, and it says none of them, would be good as a helper for Adam. It wasn't until he was put to sleep and the rib, the side of him taken from him, that Eve is formed. And at that point, he knows, yeah, this is what I needed. This one is good for me, because it's this equal, this bonding, There's part of me that I've been missing because I've only been half of a person. So the two are better than one. In Proverbs 18:22, it says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Then Proverbs 12:4 says, a capable wife is a crown for her husband. Psalm 3:1 says, O Lord, you have searched me and known me, and you know that I could not have existed without a woman. And then Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. I just think that's just so beautiful because we fall constantly. Each of us fall constantly. And yet, there we have, our spouse to lift us up and help us up and stand and walk together side by side. So the words that were used, and I'm going to speak about it a little bit further, but it's very interesting because the word used to describe Adam's creation was the word created, whereas the word for Eve is the word basically built. So Genesis 2:21 says, so the eternal God cast a deep sleep upon the human. And while he slept, God took one of his sides and closed up the flesh at that site. Then the human said, this one at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called the woman, Isha, for from the man, from the Ish, was she taken. Genesis 2:23. And then God said, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Previous to this, in Genesis 1, it is already mentioned that there was a man and there was a man and woman that had been created, basically. And yet we don't hear about their creation, their actual, I guess, creating until this chapter where we're seeing that Eve is created or built, I'm sorry. And it's really interesting because, some of the sages look at that and say, it was always in God's plan to have woman, come into play, be a part of the pictures that God was establishing. It was always God's plan. He just wanted to basically work on Adam to have him desire her and long for her and see that nothing else was going to satisfy his needs until the woman came along. And I just thought that was really beautiful. Rabbeinu Bachya says, and this, I know this is long, but I'm going to read it. Adam, having the feeling that the bones of his wife were harder than his own, that is, her bones are more bony than mine, the reason for this would be that they had been constructed out of bones, whereas his own bones had been constructed out of the dust of the earth. This may also be the reason that the Torah wrote the Yetzer when describing the formation of Adam, as the word is similar to Yetzer. A potter, someone who uses soft clay as his raw material. When the woman was formed, however, the Torah used the expression veyiben, He built instead of Beatzir. He shaped like a potter. The term reminds us, Ve'ben reminds us of a builder who builds a solid structure, something made of hard materials, not of clay. So it says, perhaps this is a reason that the psalmist in Psalm 103:13 speaks of God being merciful to his sons, as a father is merciful. Whereas when describing toughness, Proverbs 31:1 speaks of a rebuke administered by his mother, a mother being made of sterner stuff, admonishes instead of displaying pity. This paragraph made it clear that Hava was created within Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and that it was there that Adam's side was taken from him. He himself, Adam himself, had been created outside of the garden and then was transplanted there by God. So Hava was built like a strong structure in the Garden of Eden. And we know the Garden of Eden is a picture of the heavenly kingdom. Women are strong and they have a different role to play, not only in this world, but in the kingdom. That in no way diminishes our role. I know every time I say that, somebody gets offended. It's like, oh, I can do anything a man does. You know what? I'm not trying to diminish. We just have different roles. And just as men and women have different roles, Jews and Gentiles have different roles. It's not a competition if you realize how wonderful it is to embrace the role God gave you to fill. The Talmud explains that haroset, which we have during the Pesach meal, it's made of apples and honey and cinnamon and wine and nuts. It's delicious. And it is made at Passover, they say, to honor the women that were having children in Egypt under the apple tree. And it was to honor the future righteous, how it was to honor how those righteous women held the Jewish future together under the apple tree, because they were heroes. I mean, it was amazing that they were able to have children, because remember, they were supposed to turn over those children and have them killed. And yet they were having the children. And so haroset is, that sweetness of life. And that is amazing, because we honor the women of the time of Egypt, of the time of slavery, where they are carrying the future of Israel. In Sanhedrin 38b, it says that the seventh hour, Hava was given to Adam as a mate. So, you have to think about this, that this is the sixth day, right? And God has created man, and he's creating woman. Well, it says God basically brings Hava and Adam together in the seventh hour. And I thought, God, that's so amazing, because it's pertinent when you think about the 7-day plan of God. And, the first bride and the first groom come together in the seventh hour. Like, we're going to come together with the Lord, in basically the heavenly kingdom, which is basically, what Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, is a picture of. And it's also interesting Song of Solomon, he comes together in that story also. They come together in the garden. So, it's something to think about and something, to study a little more for yourself. So Steinsaltz on Song of Solomon 8:12 says, as part of the arrangement, the profits from the vineyard will be distributed. 1,000 is for you, Solomon, the custodian, and 200 will be given for those who guard its fruit. Allegorically speaking, the bride is the individual soul or the Jewish people that yearns and seeks to be married to God. The giving of the Torah was the wedding of Israel to God, as it was at that moment that the binding relationship was established. Likewise, when God dwelt among the nation of Israel with the building of the temple, it was as if the bride and the groom were created a new shared household. The great King Solomon clearly does not require more money. Still, in order to finalize the agreement, the bride must relinquish part of her inheritance and give her vineyard as a dowry. So, why did I write that? The choosing of the bride. Pesach is the time of the choosing of the bride. When Israel was freed from the bondage of slavery under the Egyptians. And here it says it's the Torah, the giving of the Torah is as the wedding. But you have to think about it. In a Jewish wedding, the very first thing that happens is, after the choosing, is the ketubah. The ketubah that is signed is basically this contract. It's a marriage contract between the bride and the groom. And that ketubah is so, it's binding to the point that if, that ketubah is broken, there would have to be a get, there would have to be a divorce, okay? It is as if they are married. We know that Rosh Hashanah, the themes of Rosh Hashanah have to do with marriage, but here we see and we know that at the giving of the Torah, that was the betrothal. Right now, we are in the time of the giving of the choosing of the bride, when God chose Israel and chose and took her out of that slavery of bondage that she was in Egypt. So the choosing of the bride was when Israel, like I said, was freed from the bondage of slavery under the Egyptians. The ketubah was given at Mount Sinai, and the Torah was given the ketubah. The Torah is the ketubah. This is actually why there's so much jealousy and anti-Semitism in the world. Israel accepted the Torah. Israel accepted that ketubah and joyfully the burden to carry it to the nations. And like I said, the actual marriage takes place at Rosh Hashanah. The word in Hebrew for home is bayit or bait. And there's a yud between the letters that form the word bat, okay, which is daughter. The concept is that the yod, the smallest of all the Hebrew letters, represents a seed. And we're even taught that it looks like a drop or a seed because of its shape. And yet it's housed within the bat, within the daughter. And that's why there's an additional statement which says, Beito zu ishto, a man's home is his wife. It's not that his house is his wife or that his wife represents the house, but that his literal home is housed within his wife on a spiritual and emotional level. A woman need not be a home. A woman is a home. I remember a long time ago, and I got this from a writing in what's it called? Chabad.org, The Role of Women in Judaism. I Am Woman by Sarah Esther Crespi. But a long time ago, there was something that I had read, and it called the womb the Beit Harhem. It's the house. It's also a house. So a woman is a home. A woman carries the home. A call to action. When the Torah writes in verse 24 that there is a special bond between a man and his wife, Rabbi Akiva in Sota 17 explained this as follows. When a man and his wife are loyal to one another, forsaking the temptation to commit adultery, God himself will be a constant companion of them, seeing that each of them has a letter of his name in their respective names. That is the letter Yod in the word Ish, and the letter, I can't see. I can't see Isha. Oh, it has a hey. Sorry, I have those. I didn't give enough space there. The letter hey in the word Isha. If they conduct themselves in an unworthy manner, giving to the temptation to engage in forbidden carnal relationship, God withdraws from them, leaving only the letters Ish, which is fire, the burning lust in their respective names. This fire will consume them. This fire will burn more fiercely, it says, in woman than in man, so that she will experience its destructive effect sooner than her loyal partner. As the letter of God's name was only a suffix in the word Isha, where the name Ish is, it's central to that word. So the Yod that spelled the word high, and I think this is, I thought this was important. So the Yod, we use it to spell the word high or life. What I see is a man and a woman both need to focus on what true life is, and that's Torah. Torah is life. Life is only possible when the hand, because the Yod is a hand, when the hand of God is involved. And the Torah-centered life will help the man and the woman focus on a godly life. Like I said before, men and women have different roles established by God. When things are out of order in a home, that's usually a sign that the roles aren't being respected and the roles are diminished. God gives us different roles, not that to say that this person's greater or that person's greater. No, it's just different roles to have things function properly. So right now, during this time, I believe during the time of Pesach, it's a time of family coming together. It's a time of thinking about, that relationship that God called us to be his bride, that God called us to act as the bride that is going to take care of that Jewish home, that spiritual Jewish home, and give out that seed that needs to go out to the nations. We need to give out Torah, especially in these dark times. We need to open our mouths and speak Torah to others and show them the love that God has for us and for them also. And then the last thing I have for you is the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, Changing the world is a twofold task. Bringing spirituality into the world is principally the man's task. Elevating the world to become spiritual is principally the woman's task. Men generally are meant to deal with the present. The future and those who will live in it is in the hand of the woman. So I leave you with these thoughts, and I hope that this sparks a little something in you to study some more this week and go out, speak to other people about how wonderful our God is and how wonderful his Torah is to give us life. Have a good week, and we will see you on Shabbat. If not, we'll see you next Wednesday. And shalom.